All right. Welcome, everyone. Today is Wednesday, July 9th, and the time is 5:01 p.m. We will call this meeting to order. Melissa, will you please take roll call?
Melissa Denton. Carl Hebner.
Here.
Andy Cabarrus.
Here.
Denise Meyer. And joining remotely, Richard Poor.
Here.
And Dr. Poor, would you mind stating the reason for your remote participation tonight?
I am away for work.
Okay, thank you. And also seated at the board table is Superintendent of Schools Bob Thompson and CFO Jeff Dowd.
All right. At this point, I'll be looking for a vote by the board to allow Rich to participate remotely. So all in favor of allowing Rich to participate remotely?
Can we back up a little bit?
Sure.
Would we like someone to second that motion before it hits the
Thank you.
table? Dr. Hubner? Thank you. And would you like me to do a roll call vote because of the remote
Yes.
participant?
Please, Melissa, take roll.
Okay. Ms. Denton?
Yes.
Carl Hubner?
Yes.
Andy Cabarrus?
Yes.
Denise Meyer? And Richard Poor?
Yes.
Thank you.
All right. At this point, please all rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. At this point, we will open the floor up for public comment. Melissa, has anyone come forward for public comment?
Not at this point, no.
Great. Thank you.
Andy, can I interrupt real quick?
Absolutely.
I believe I'm supposed to say that there is no one else in the room with me.
Thank you, Dr. Poor.
You're welcome. Sorry about that.
Appreciate that. All right, moving on to current business. We have fund balance retention with Mr. Dowd.
Off at the last meeting, I know we wanted a little more time to assess what you'd like to do for fund balance retention. That is something that needs to be voted on every year, and this year we're holding about $200,000. This is money that's held from the unreserved surplus balance for emergencies, and essentially our budget would have to be depleted completely before we'd be able to dip into it, but that's the purpose of it. You have, I think you can hold up to 2.5%, it'd be about $772,000, and really I think that we're in a situation this year where the return to the taxpayers will be healthy with whatever amount you choose, up to that amount.
Board members, any thoughts on an amount that we put towards fund balance?
We're still in the we don't know phase of what's going on at the state level, so I feel like a higher may be needed.
I would agree, just based on the state of special ed and knowing the costs associated with that, and where we are higher than we originally estimated in terms of our surplus. So personally, I was leaning more towards that $500,000 towards fund balance, but I don't know if anyone else feels differently.
I think it should be more than what we did last year. And I know I asked about the state of the federal funding, and it seems like there's 40,000 we're not sure we might get this year.
Yeah, I think it's still up in the air for what our FY or our school year 25-26 allocation will be. There's been some conversation about level funding for IDEA and Title I, but the allocations still have not arrived in the grant management system. And then Title II and Title IV, as I had forwarded to the board, the Federal Department of Education is holding those funds until they can be further reviewed to ensure that they align with the priorities of the federal government. So we do not believe that we should expect to see Title II and Title IV And just real quick, Title II is often used to support teacher professional learning. We fund most of our mentor program through that. What that means is we'll continue with our mentor program. We're just going to have to fold that into our existing operating budget. And again, we're talking about funds that we have 2 years to spend. So we're currently, for this upcoming school year, where a lot of what we're funding is through the current grant that is available to us. So we're really talking about looking ahead into the future.
And Jeff, I'm hoping you can give us a ballpark estimate. So if we were to move forward with the 500,000 towards fund balance, ballpark estimate of what would get returned back to the taxpayers?
Be over $1 million, 1.2 maybe.
Okay.
So that's really a very preliminary ballpark. We just had our last check run today and still have to assess outstanding liabilities and any unknowns we may not be aware of. But I think that would be a healthy return to the town, even at 500,000.
Board members, any other questions or concerns or feelings around the amount?
So the 10-year average was 400,000. I kind of lean more towards that just because I think 200,000 is too low.
Right.
But I also think
You think 500,000 is too high?
I think using the average that we've done over the last 10 years, I think is more appropriate. Even though I am worried about some other stuff, I feel like the fact that our budget didn't pass and stuff like that, I think we have to be cognizant of that. And at the end of the day, it's kind of pulling a number somewhat out of thin air, but at least there's some justification for the 400,000 being that that's like the 10-year average.
Agreed. So are we saying 400,000 or 450?
That's a really good question.
So I think we have to be reasonably conservative with what we retain, knowing what might be ahead of us, but then also balance that out with the needs of the town and what the taxpayers are giving us for feedback.
Yep.
So I don't want to go over too far there's still so many unknowns.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm kind of like that 350, 400
Okay.
range.
4, I guess 4 would be my happy middle.
I'm more leaning towards 4 as the happy medium as well.
What do you think, Rich?
Rich, any thoughts on fund balance and the amount? At this point, we're kind of between 350 and 400,000.
Yeah, sorry, the volume the sound goes kind of in and out for me. But no, I thought 400 was the appropriate number.
All right. I will make a motion to do the fund balance retain for 400,000.
I will second. Any other questions or discussion? All approved.
Let's go to roll call.
Oh, yes, please take a roll call.
Ms. Denton?
Yes.
Dr. Hubner? Yes. Mr. Cabarrus?
Yes.
Mrs. Meyer? And Dr. Poor.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. Now moving on to the HMS Assistant Principal finalist nomination and interview with Bob Thompson.
All right. It is with great enthusiasm that I nominate to the board Amy Maldonado to serve as the next assistant principal of the Hampstead Middle School. Amy currently serves as the assistant principal at the Albert B. Constantino Middle School in Haverhill, Mass. She serves as an assistant principal. She recently completed her 3rd year. She has a background in teaching that includes working in ESL and inclusion teacher in Lawrence, Massachusetts. She also taught adult ESOL students in the district's family literacy program and began her career as a resident and co-teacher at the Up Academy Leonard. She holds a master's degree in TESOL, ESL, and bilingual education from Lesley University, and a bachelor's in English from UMass Lowell, and she's also fluent in Spanish. I would also just like to highlight before we move into the board interview, what was very impressive were some of the comments from both the formal references and even some of the informal references that we do. A few folks commented that her people skills are phenomenal. Her strength is with working with students. She knows almost every student in our 800-plus school building. She has strong relationships with families. She cares deeply about students and takes the time to get to know them. She has an open door policy. She makes the time for anyone who needs it. She makes teachers feel important. She's always willing to help out. She's concentrated her time on teachers that are new to the profession. So really, in addition to the qualification she has, her colleagues speak very highly of her. So I am excited to present Ms. Maldonado to the board this evening. So Amy, if you want to step forward to the
To
microphone.
the podium. No worries. Yeah, now's your time.
I'm actually thrilled that I get to do this standing up because this feels more comfortable, so thank you.
Andy, can you move me a little bit? There we go.
There we go.
Thanks.
Okay. Can I introduce myself?
Absolutely.
Okay, great.
Love that.
My name is Amy Maldonado. I am an assistant principal currently at a school in Haverhill, Massachusetts. I am interested in this opportunity for two reasons. One, it came up and I couldn't pass it up, so I did decide to apply. And secondly, this is so different than what I'm used to. This just feels very out of my comfort zone, but in the best way possible. I think it will allow me to grow in ways that I didn't think I could, while also pushing my practice in a way that I think I will appreciate.
Thank you. And I'll just say thank you for coming and thank you for going through all of the different phases of this process. We do have some interview questions for you just to get to know you a little bit better. So I'll ask the first question. Could you give me an example of a strategy that you use to address student behavior in a positive way at your current role or in any role that you've worked in?
Sure. Two things come to mind. At our school, we use a PBIS system, but a PBIS system is only as good as a positive and negative consequence. And so we allowed students to earn positive consequences and negative consequences. Essentially, every action has an equal and opposite reaction. So in our school, we use a merit system. If a student is doing the positive thing, they earn a merit. For example, if a student supports in helping to clean the cafeteria, I might say something like, "That's a merit, thank you for your help." If a student is doing something that requires a redirection or a change of action, I might say something like, "That's a reminder, I need you to sit down." Or, "That's a reminder, please raise your hand." I'm telling the student exactly what I need to do, exactly what they need to do to correct that behavior. So in both situations, I try to be very clear about what the consequence is, positive or negative. And then the second way that I try really hard to make sure that students know that they've done the right thing is I like to leave little Post-it notes. I check in with students regularly, and so if they come to me with an issue, problem, or concern, I check in and follow up with a little Post-it note, remind them that I believe that they can make really positive choices, and often that does seem really helpful in helping me to build those relationships with students as well.
I have the next question. Can you talk about how you would plan to support teachers and staff in the building?
I love that question. I feel really passionate about learning exactly what is happening in the building, right? I think that there are really good things that are happening, and the sense that I get is that people are really proud of the work that they're doing. And so I think it is incredibly important to really build off of whatever is happening. All of the positive and good things that are happening should continue to happen. I think that there are certainly always areas of improvement, and so I think it is important to have those conversations with teachers, right? What went really well in your practice when I observed? What is something that you think you could do differently? And what is something that you will implement for the next time that I observe your classroom? right? I think those conversations are important, and they keep us ready to continue to grow our practice.
I have the next one. What is your philosophy on discipline and your top 3 priorities for behaviors that you would feel like you needed to address right away?
Discipline is necessary. I believe in consequences, and I believe that students should earn consequences. I think that the 3 things that I prioritize, if there is a fight, I want to make sure that a student earns a consequence, an appropriate consequence there. If a student states that they're being bullied, I think it's important to address that. I want students to feel safe and supported in the building, and I think that often when students allege that they're being bullied, they're not believed, right? So I think it's important that we take those steps to ensure that they do feel safe and supported. And finally, I think one of my personal pet peeves is that I will not tolerate students being rude or disrespectful to staff. I think it's important that students are respectful and they learn that skill. It's a life skill. You can't just turn around and curse someone out because you feel frustrated. But ultimately, I think that those are the top 3 priorities that I try to focus on in terms of behavior. So fights, if they should happen, they should earn a consequence. Bullying, we want to take those situations seriously. And being rude or disrespectful to teachers, that just cannot happen.
Thank you.
I have the next question for you. How do you approach building trust and positive relationships with families, especially when there may be concerns, misunderstandings, or differing expectations?
I think one thing that I work really hard to prioritize in my current school is making sure that I know students, not just their names, and not just the students who end up in my office regularly. I think it's important to learn a variety of students and what their wants, needs, and desires are. And so when a parent comes in, I can say, oh, Sophia from grade 6, I know her, I know that she's struggling with this. And often that does seem to work in building relationships with families. If I am able to identify things that are working really well or areas of improvement for families about their own children, it makes them feel like I know who their child is. The other thing that I work really hard to do is that I genuinely believe that families can be our biggest assets. I'm calling home all the time. I'm calling home for positive behaviors. I'm calling home for negative consequences. I'm calling home all the time. One of the things that I think our school does really well now is that we use iReady as an intervention platform. I build rapport with students because I'm able to celebrate their growth in terms of typical or stretch. And then I typically end up calling families and celebrating that victory. Your child went up 200 points in their, stretch or typical or, whatever it may be. And families really appreciate that. So when they come in and they have concerns or questions, desires, they understand that there will likely be something positive that comes out of this conversation. So I think that sandwich effect is really important and hopefully allows us to find that common ground even when we don't agree.
I have the next question. So beyond working with students and staff, parent communications are obviously really critical in the role. So can you give an example of where you had a difficult conversation with a parent or effectively communicated?
Just one? Oh, I've got plenty. Let me tell you, let's go back 5 years. I'm going into my 5th year as an AP. And so in my first year, I had a parent who would call me, curse me out, and tell me that I did not know how to do my job. And this was every day, probably for 3 months, right? It was tough. I sat there and I turned on my customer service voice and I tried my best to support her. I told her, listen, I hear your concerns. I'd like to work with you to support your daughter. In this situation, it was a little bit interesting. The daughter was getting into fights constantly. The mom did not see that she should earn a consequence. And I told her, listen, this is causing a disruption to the school. So I think honesty is really important. I try to be really honest, really transparent with families. I make sure that they have their space to feel heard and listened to. And then I try really hard to work to find a solution. Does it work every time? Absolutely not. That's why she went on for 3 months and cursed me out, right? In those situations, sometimes though, I do have to be a little bit more stern. This is my professional job. I'm doing what I think is best for your daughter. And unfortunately, we're going to have to agree to disagree. She needs a consequence here. Those are a little bit tougher for sure, but certainly necessary. In a school, there has to be order. There has to be a decision that needs to be made in order to maintain that order. And sometimes it just turns out that there just isn't a way to negotiate that. So I am prepared to have those conversations, but fingers crossed that things are more like neutral and calm so that we can work together to better support students.
Great, thank you.
Can you speak about your experience and knowledge of MTSS?
Sure. I've been doing a little bit of research, so I think it's MTSS-A and MTSS-B.
So New Hampshire is different
Okay.
than Mass, yep. So
Okay.
they separate it out by A for academic and B for behavior.
I think that's really interesting. In Mass, it's just kind of clumped together. In my head, it just makes sense because you need one to support the other, but it is interesting that there is a division here. So I appreciate that. I think when I think about MTSS, I think there needs to be a process. And part of that means that we're holding people, teachers, or I don't know if case managers is the right word here, but the person in charge of putting in the MTSS referrals. I think it's important that we're holding those people accountable so that those interventions are happening. I also think that conversations about the interventions are incredibly impactful. So at our school, we meet once a month. We have those conversations as a team, but I make it my business to follow up with those case managers as often as possible so that I can understand what is working, what is not working in those interventions. By the time we reconvene, I have a better sense of what the student is able to achieve. I like to frame it as able to achieve because often we frame it as this kid can't. And I do not think that's fair to the student. When we're thinking about the whole student, we want to ensure that we're talking about those can-dos. This kid can, this kid will, and eventually this kid will be able to. And so when I think about that, I think those conversations are really beneficial. I think including those interventions and following the process to ensure that we are following those interventions is helpful. And finally, I think that ensuring that we are meeting the student where they are is necessary.
Carl, I think it's you.
What one skill do you want your students to leave middle school with or have grown into?
I want them to be good people. I think before anything else, right, before we want them to be good citizens, to help each other, to have those values where they are just good, kind people, right? I think that's important.
And then Denise?
Can you please share 3 key responsibilities of an assistant principal and the skills that you possess that make you the best person to meet them?
I think that discipline is a big part of the job. I think my experience in urban education has allowed me experiences to navigate discipline in a way that makes me feel comfortable. I think family engagement is another big part of the job, right? It is my job to support families and students the same way that it is my job to support teachers. So family engagement, I think, is important. I think one of the things that I do well is that I support in our climate committee. Our climate committee in Haverhill is a committee that puts on events and just makes sure that the school culture is moving in a positive and proactive direction. And then I think my third skill set here is supporting teachers. I think that the job means that I am supporting teachers in a way that pushes their practice, but also supports teachers in a way that makes them feel comfortable, confident, and able, so that they come into my office anytime they need that. Or if they see me in the hallway, they have those conversations about what it is that they need. So those are the top 3 things that I think this role really does entail: discipline, family engagement, and certainly supporting teachers.
Thank you.
Last question for me. Speaking of family engagement, can you speak of experiences in partnering with community organizations and engaging families in education?
Oh, yes. I love family engagement. As I mentioned earlier, I think that families can be our biggest assets, and I hold true to that. I think one of the things that we've done really well at our school is that we've incorporated our PTO. Our PTO, the president is just incredible, and she basically knows someone for everything. And so it's really nice. We have a community school model in the works right now. But because she is so sort of well known in the community, we're able to get those community partners pretty easily. I imagine that this is a community that is very similar, right? People want to help. They want to see students succeed. They want to see middle school. They want to see a middle school succeed. And most importantly, I think that we kind of try to step out of the box to create fun and engaging events for families. I think I've mentioned this before, but one of the events that is that is true and near to my heart is a Fright Night event. We put on a whole haunted house experience for students, families, and whoever else wants to come. So we do involve a lot of community partners. We make sure that we get as many haunted goodies as we can. We get the families in. One of the other things that we do is that we always get pizza from our guy from Sal's, who he always gives us a really good discount because he, again, is hoping to help this school at a larger sort of impact. So I think that family engagement is so important and can really help build the culture in a building. And I think it sets the precedent that we are here to work together to support all students.
Experiences in Haverhill, what did you learn that will help you to be an impactful assistant principal here in Hampstead?
This is such a good question because I feel that I'm still growing in my practice, right? Eventually, I think the goal is that I want to be really good at this work. And so there are so many things that I'm taking with me, I hope. For one, patience, right? We want things to go our way, but of course we want to make sure that we're meeting people where they are. And I think in a school where there are 800 students, it is sometimes very challenging to remain patient, right? You just want to make sure that you figure something out, find a solution, and move on to the next fire to put out. But I think the thing that is most rewarding about that is that it gives us space to just think about what is happening, right? So definitely patience. I think my ability to build relationships with students, staff, and families is certainly something that I find is a strength, but also something that I learned to do really well at Constantino. I'm hopeful that I can bring that skill set here and that we can build those relationships and partnerships as well. And then I think finally, the last thing that I feel excited about, and this feels a little bit odd to say because I feel nervous right now, so you're not necessarily seeing that, but I feel like I'm typically a very excited person, right? I really appreciate celebrating lots of things, teachers, students, whatever is happening. I want to make a big deal about it because I love making people feel good, right? And there's nothing better about making a teacher's day and telling them that they did a really good job. Teachers already don't hear that, so I hope that we bring that sense of celebration here. I'm sure it's already here, but that is something that I have learned to do really well as a result of working in such a fast-paced environment.
I'd just like to say that this is not the excited version of you. I'm really
She gets
intrigued about what
better,
the
I
excited version looks like. So you have a
Thank
lot of
you.
energy. Yeah.
Right. That's all the questions we have. So again, I want to thank you, board members. Any other comments or anything you'd like to say to Amy? Okay. Yeah.
Okay, great. Do y'all want me to leave?
Yeah. At this point, we will go into a non-public under 91A3B, the hiring of any person as a public employee. Yep. Perfect.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Yep. I'll make a motion to go into non-public under 91A3 to to B. And Melissa, will you please take roll?
Ms. Denton.
Yes.
Dr. Hubner. Mr. Cabarrus.
Yes.
Mrs. Meyer. And Dr. Poor.
Rich?
Dr. Poor, we have a motion on the table to go into non-public.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes.
Motion to exit non-public.
All right. Ms. Denton.
Yes.
Dr. Hubner. Mr. Cabarrus.
Yes.
Mrs. Meyer. And Dr. Poor.
Rich, we just made a motion. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, welcome back, everyone. We are back in our meeting. We came out of non-public. And Carl, did you want to state kind of your question?
There we go. There we go. Bob, can you just explain what the process has been for the hiring and the kind of the different levels that went through?
Yes. So when we went back into the search in early June, we went back to the original candidate pool and made the decision that we were not going to call back any of the original candidates that we initially looked at. We received additional applications in the coming days after that. Reviewed a total of, I think, 5 applications, and there were 2 that really stood out. So a stakeholder screening committee was put together, and that included a school board rep, 2 teacher reps from the middle school, a district administrator, Principal Bernard, and our director of student services as well. So both candidates were interviewed. Both candidates ultimately went on to become finalists. That finalist round was a writing prompt. It was a meet and greet. Because it's the summer months, we decided to do 1 meet and greet that would combine students, staff, and teachers. In total, I think we had approximately 20 people that attended the meet and greet. I would say the majority of them were staff members. After that finalist round, reviewed the meet and greet feedback, reviewed the writing prompts, and reviewed my notes from the finalist interviews. And it was clear that Amy Maldonado would be my nomination for the assistant principal. So again, the search, the process the second time around looked a little different from the first. And a lot of that has to do with the time of the year, the number of candidates. It needs to be some fluidity in the process. But I give Amy a lot of credit. She has been very, very well vetted. I also appreciate the fact that, we're geographically located pretty close to Haverhill, and Hampstead is a small community. So having folks reach out to me informally to inform me of Amy's candidacy was very helpful.
Great. Thank you, Bob. At this point, I will make a motion to approve the nomination for Amy Maldonado as the HMS assistant principal. Can I hear a second?
Second.
Who has a second on that? Sorry. I beat him.
Give it to Carl.
Thank you.
And are we taking roll for that?
Yes, would the board need to discuss first, or should we just go right to roll call vote?
Board members, any other discussion or comments? Okay.
Ms. Denton?
Yes.
Dr. Hubner?
Yes.
Mr. Cabarrus?
Yes.
Mrs. Meyer? And Dr. Poor?
Abstain.
Okay, thank you. We have one abstention, sorry. Motion passes.
Welcome aboard.
Thank you.
Congratulations, Amy.
Welcome to the district. All right, moving on to other and old business. So Board members, in your packets, you have 2 sets of meeting minutes from June 10th, 2025. One is for the regular meeting, and the other is for the non-public. Or no, are these both non-public minutes?
No, there's one set from the regular meeting and 2 non-public sets.
Oh, and 2 non-publics, that's why. Okay, thank you. 1 set of minutes for the regular meeting and 2 sets of minutes for the non-public. So if you could go ahead and review those, that would be great. I'll be looking for a motion to approve the meeting minutes for the regular meeting on June 10th, 2025, and the 2 sets of non-public meeting minutes.
So moved.
Any other questions or discussion?
You need a second?
Oh,
I moved it.
Oh.
You got somebody?
second.
There we go.
I will second that.
It's all good.
Any other questions or discussion? All approved.
Oh,
Oh,
roll
are
call.
we taking roll, sorry. Taking
And
roll.
just to
please.
clarify, because I missed it, is this for the 3 sets of minutes
this
from
is all
June
the
10th,
3
the
sets
2
of minutes.
non-public and the regular meeting?
Yes.
Yes,
Okay,
please.
thank you. All right, so roll call, Ms. Denton,
Yes.
Dr. Hubner,
Yes.
Mr. Cabarrus,
Yes.
Mrs. Meyer,
Yes.
and Dr. Poor?
Abstain.
Okay, thank you. Motion passes. 1 abstention.
Okay. Board members, any other questions or discussion?
I do want to go into a non-public.
Yep.
So I'd like to make a motion to go into a non-public under 91A32. A, the dismissal, promotion, or compensation of any public employee or the disciplining of such employee, and C, matters which, if discussed in public, would likely adversely affect the reputation of any person other than the member of the public body itself.
I will second that. And we won't be coming out of non-public after that.
Yeah, I don't anticipate us.
Okay. Melissa, will you please take roll call?
Yes. Ms. Denton,
Yes.
Dr. Hubner?
Yes.
Mr. Cabarrus?
Yes.
Mrs. Meyer? And Dr. Poor?
Yes.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, everyone.